All right. So hello, everybody. By now, you might have some PowerPoint fatigue, so I'm doing something different with a pile of tabs. What could possibly go wrong? We will find out. Um, so in this 20-minute talk, you will get a brief introduction to Wikibase and its extension ecosystem. So first of all, what is Wikibase? So it's a MediaWiki extension, an open source MediaWiki extension, not to be confused with Wikibase, the company from the Netherlands. And it's most well known for Wikidata, the project for which it was initially developed. And ever since it was developed for Wikidata, it's also been adopted by various institutions, mainly for publishing datasets or collaboratively curating those datasets. And here on Wikidata, there is over 1 million items. Let's look at one of those. We have actually an item about the conference here, and on there we have some information about where is the conference and at which time is it taking place. Naturally, this is a rather small item, so let's look at Hanover for a bit more of an example here. You can see there is labels in various languages, so Wikibase is natively multilingual, and here we have, say, multiple values for country, because Hanover was part of different countries at different points in time. So Wikibase has support for multiple values, and you can then qualify those values with arbitrary statements. So in this case, these are points in time. And the Germany is highlighted in green since it's the currently correct value. Like point in time is often used as a qualifier, but you can also use a different type of qualifiers. Let's see, it's a bit difficult to see from this angle, but here we have population, which has also a qualifier about the method of measurement. All right, so that's in a very brief what is Wikibase, and why am I talking about this? Well, I am one of the original developers of Wikibase. I also a long-time MediaWiki developer. I created dozens of extensions. My main expertise is software development, especially software architecture and software maintainability. And nowadays I am part of Professional Wiki, where I'm CEO and CTO. So we also create MediaWiki and Wikibase extensions. All right, let's move on to the first extension here, which is Wikibase Faceted Search. Oh, but before I do, so I will quickly go through half a dozen extensions, spending like 2 minutes on each of those. And feel free to ask questions by raising your hand if something isn't clear. We don't need to be super strict here. All right, and I gave you a very short introduction about what is Wikibase. Tomorrow at 16:30, there will be a talk by Tom Otto here, who will give you a more in-depth introduction of what can you all do with Wikibase. So this is more to give you a high-level idea of what extensions are out there that you might want to look in more. All right, first one is Wikibase Faceted Search. I think this is a contender for the most generally useful Wikibase extension, so I'm biased here since it's the most recent Wikibase extension that we created. Do I have a tab for this? Yes, I do. So this is a live demo on one of our client wikis where Wikibase Faceted Search is deployed. As the name suggests, it provides faceted search, and it does this by integrating into the standard MediaWiki search. And technically speaking, in the background, a bunch of elastic search things are happening. So this particular wiki is about mathematics. They have items about people, publications, datasets, and software. And you can see these corresponding tabs here. You can then easily filter with the facets here. And this is a great way for non-technical users to explore what's in the data and to find specific results. So most of what this extension provides was actually already possible with standard Wikibase extensions, because you can use this keyword search in the search field there. That you can also use Sparkle to find results, but of course for non-technical users that's not great. So this UI helps with that. And we ended up also adding some additional capabilities that to the Elastic implementation here. Yes. So you might notice there's this configuration button here that shows up if you're an administrator, and that leads to this configuration page on the wiki, which is something that we have for a number of the Wikibase extensions. So you can do your classical configuration of the extension in PHP, but you can also do it on the wiki, which is great for people that are less technical, because if you forget a semicolon, the wiki doesn't break, like there's some validation here. And also if it's like a hosted solution, well, you don't need to have server access to make configuration changes here. And you have also a version history, so you can undo your changes. And as a side note, nowadays I think this is especially nice if the user, so for those not familiar with is this edit source? I hope so. Okay. So you can directly get at this configuration JSON here, and this is of course documented on the documentation page. Nowadays, with all these LLMs out there, you can just point them at the configuration page and say like, okay, I want to do this stuff, or I have these properties, create the configuration for me. So I think it's very nice if you allow access to route configuration like this for your users. All right, moving on to the next extension. One thing that might surprise you a little bit if you are familiar with other data management extensions in the MediaWiki ecosystem is that Wikibase, while it allows you to create these item pages where you can set information, it has no way to then display this information within normal pages in the wiki, like creating an info box or something. At least the core Wikibase extension doesn't have this. So there's no equivalent of, say, ask and show in Semantic MediaWiki. And that's where the Wikibase client extension comes in. That thing adds Wikitext parser functions and also Lua bindings. This is just a simple example here where you can say statements P2, so show me the values for the P2 statement of the connected item. And here we are on the Mardi portal again. So Wikibase, if you install the Blazecraft as well, the query service, you can run Sparkle queries against your Wikibase data. And there is a small extension called Sparkle, which allows you then to connect to Blazecraft and display information in your wiki page. So here is information. So it's basically like an ask query in Semantic MediaWiki, but it's a Sparkle query in the background that's happening via Lua. You can create tables with that. You can also create visualizations with that. So that's a nice way to provide a more user-friendly view on your Wikibase data for people that are just consuming it rather than adding it as well. All right. Then another thing that might surprise you, or something that is a bit odd with standard Wikibase, but that has a sensible historical reason. Well, so Wikibase was developed for Wikidata, right? And on there, since it's a Wikimedia project, we wanted to use images from Wikimedia Commons. So we have a dozen data types in Wikibase, including a Commons media file data type. But then other people started using Wikibase, and there was no way to use your local images. So if you have a wiki with images in it, and you have Wikibase, you cannot reference those images at all. So this was the most popular community request for a while, and that led to the creation of the first standard Wikibase extension, if you will. And here I mean like standard in the sense that it's a real MediaWiki extension with PHP. As opposed to, there are many, many tools built on top of Wikibase via the web API or that otherwise interface with it. So Wikibase local media allows you to have local images. So here on this demo wiki, we have image I uploaded yesterday, and we have a statement with that image, and it basically works the same as your normal Commons MediaWiki data type. So we have autocompletion and so on there, and previews and whatnot for the images. Then moving on to something similar, another new data type that's added by a different extension, which is called Wikibase ADTF. This extension adds support for the Extendable Datetime Format Standard, or EDTF for short. And via this standard, you can specify quite complex dates. You can, for instance, specify ranges. You can specify uncertainty. You could say something like the date is the second of the month, the second of an unknown month in 1984, something like that. And well, installing this is pretty straightforward, and it then gives you access to. Okay, this is not the tab I was expecting. Let's see if we can see some interesting time values here. So here is an example of like, it's either of these values. You can also see it supports seasons here. You will also notice there is this like little preview here that explains what this date actually means, because not everybody knows the EDTF format. And this is especially useful for like GLAM institutions and authority files, which is also true for our next extension, which is the automated values extension. And this extension allows defining rules, again via some JSON, which I think is on the next tab here. So for instance, if you have an authority file, you might have rules around the naming of the people, like you want to combine the first name and the last name, or maybe it's a bit more complicated like this. And such a rule is set up for here, so that if we make an edit to, say, John here, and we add some characters here, then the label of the page is also going to automatically update. And this happens within the same revision, so it's not like tools that are watching which edits are happening and then make an additional edit. And yes, this uses this same JSON configuration approach, which is also well documented. I have no idea how I did with time here. I see 17 passed. Yes. So originally I thought this was a 20-minute talk, so it's apparently a bit longer. So we are mostly at the end here, so there's plenty of time for questions. If you're also interested in this topic and you want to learn more about which Wikibase extensions are out there, we have a blog post which covers a lot of the extensions that we just saw, but there's like 17 extensions in here. And it also gives some indication of how difficult these extensions are to install, so you're not surprised. All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Can you tell me more about what the biggest not Wikidata users of Wikibase are? I'm just quite curious what because obviously those two projects are very closely linked in general, right? I'm curious if you have any sense of what the biggest users are and what they're using it for outside of that.
Right. So there's national libraries that are using it. Some of the extensions that we demoed here, we developed for the Luxembourg Ministry of Culture, so they have a big data set. Often these are millions or tens of millions of items that these institutions have. There's also corporations that are using it internally. that I cannot name names.
Yeah.
And if I'm probably also not the best person to answer this, because I suspect folks from Wikimedia Deutschland here have a better feel on what the biggest public users of the software are.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I think the lack of inline querying is probably the single biggest weakness of Wikibase, core Wikibase something, and so it's nice that you have this Sparkle extension that does it. There's also Semantic Wikibase, which is listed there. I don't think you talked about it, but it's essentially, I think, another way of doing the same thing, which is you first store everything as SMW properties, and then you can use SMW to query that. Do you have a recommendation you give to people on which avenue, which path to go with?
So Semantic Wikibase is currently not compatible with the latest versions of the relevant software. And while it gives you access to, say, the best of both worlds, it also gives you the complexity of both, like on an operational level and a maintenance level. So if you can get by with the Sparkle extension, I would stick to that. That's a very thin binding where you're just essentially talking to the Sparkle endpoint via Lua.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, thank you for a talk. I will show tomorrow in my talks some kind of applications for Wikibases, especially for a lot of different Wikibases, where it's the big problem that right now there's also wikibase.cloud and all these kind of things. So a lot of Wikibase instances out there with a lot of different data models. Are there any somehow extensions or whatever planned, that to combine all of these distributed things to make federation really somehow useful in the end? Because it's also from my own experience, it's quite nice to build up your own Wikibase with your own data model and everything is quite fine. But if you want to combine data in the end, it's always a bit complicated. And maybe I oversaw something, or an extension could help in this kind of things to combine all this, in the first place, different data models together, but also maybe different Wikibases describing the same things somehow. Because then, if we look at the whatever huge knowledge graph, it would be very helpful to bring that data together.
Mm-hmm. I think this is an excellent thing to ask Tom tomorrow after his presentation, if he doesn't answer it outright. All right, seems like we have no more questions, so thank you very much.